The rule in my house was incredibly simple. You never, ever answer the door after midnight unless someone knocks exactly twice. Why? Because whatever knocks a third time, well, it isn't asking to come in. It's checking if you're still there. And that night, someone knocked twice. Then, 40 seconds later, a third knock. And my sister, she opened the door anyway. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're diving deep into the anatomy of a truly masterful supernatural horror story. It's a tale that perfectly captures the crippling weight of inherited family superstitions. So let's look at the grandfather's rule. It's basically a mandate for survival, right? It's hyper-specific and totally unforgiving. Step 1, wait for 2 knocks to safely open the door. Step 2, if you hear a third knock, you run straight to the back room. Step 3, do not come out until morning, period. It totally frames the unknown not as a monster you can fight off, but as an inevitable force you just have to survive by following these arbitrary instructions to the letter. But here's the thing about rules. They get tested. Years before the main event, our narrator is 16. It's 1 a.m. and he hears 2 sharp raps. He checks the people, sees nothing, but because he's young and foolish, he opens the door anyway. And nothing happens. He literally forgets about the whole thing in a week. But his younger sister, Mehar, she was only 12. She doesn't forget. In fact, for the next 6 years, she sleeps with the hallway light glaring brightly. So we get this completely anticlimactic event that lulls the narrator into a false sense of security while quietly planting the seed of deep, unresolved trauma in his sister. Fast forward 6 years, and that's when the true horror of this text kicks in. That fragile sense of security is completely shattered by a single, terrifying, inciting incident. The midnight phone call. Now, to really grasp the terror of this moment, we have to look at the environment. The narrator is now 22. He's totally exhausted, grinding away at 2 a.m. shifts at a call center. Meher is 18 and home all alone because their parents are out of town for months at a time. And this is absolutely crucial. Their childhood home is literally the very last house in Karate. It sits right where the paved road turns to dirt and the streetlights just give up. This isn't just throwaway background info. It's vital to the anatomy of the horror here. By isolating them so completely, the narrative grounds these incoming supernatural elements in a setting that feels incredibly real and deeply vulnerable. So, the narrator is at his night shift, and his phone rings. It's Meher. And her voice is way too calm, like that eerie kind of calm that's actually just masking pure panic. She tells him, "Someone knocked twice. I didn't open it. Data said 2 was fine, but I didn't feel fine." This is a huge turning point in our explainer. It's that sudden, chilling realization that the rules, these deeply held superstitions meant to keep us safe, might actually be totally flawed. You know, I'm sure we all have those weird childhood superstitions we grew up with. Just imagine the absolute dread of realizing the monster outside doesn't care about your family's little rules. Over the phone, he's begging her, "Do not open the door, I'll be home in an hour." But then, Meher's breathing changes. She whispers that it's been 40 seconds. 40 agonizing seconds since that second knock. And in that massive, gaping silence, the anticipation just swells. If that third knock comes, she says, she has to run to the back room. And then the line goes quiet. It's not dead, just quiet, like she's pulled the phone away from her ear to listen to the house. Now, pay attention to the brilliant auditory shift that happens right here in the story. The first and second knocks, totally mundane, normal, expected sounds hitting the outside of a solid wooden front door. But the third knock, the narrator hears it through the phone, and it's just one knock, slow, deliberate, like it has all the time in the world. The horror literally bypasses the physical barrier of the door entirely and transmits straight through the open communication line. So you really have to ask yourself, where did that third knock actually come from? Keep that in mind as we hit the absolute breaking point of this narrative. Through the receiver, the narrator hears Meher's footsteps on the wooden floor, but they're unhurried. They just sound wrong. She isn't running to the safety of the back room like the rule says. She's walking toward the front door. She tells her brother in this flat, completely emotionless voice that it knocked twice and Dada said 2 is fine. The narrator is screaming into the phone that the first sound was on the call, that she is miscounting, but the line cuts dead. The text throws us right into the frantic panic of the narrator.
He's racing home, breaking every single rule about staying calm in an emergency. He's blowing through red lights, and when he finally gets there, the imagery is just deeply unsettling. The front gate, which is always closed, is hanging completely open. The porch light is dead. The front door is standing wide open to the dark. And the house is completely silent, but it's not a peaceful silence. The story describes it as having this thick, heavy texture to it, like static.
Inside, he finds the aftermath. Meher is sitting on the hallway floor, exactly halfway to the back room. She only made it halfway. She's got her knees pulled tight to her chest, and her eyes are wide open, but just completely blank. When he says her name, she doesn't even react. It takes a full, agonizing minute for her to just turn her head, and when she finally does, she looks at him like she's trying to remember who he even is. This visual is just chilling. It perfectly demonstrates the severe, debilitating psychological shock of whatever she just came face to face with.
It takes over a year for Meher to finally reveal the broken pieces of what happened that night. And guys, what she saw forces us to completely re-examine everything we thought we knew about the threat outside that door. We get this terrifying reality warping twist when we contrast her expectations with reality. So when Mehar opened the door on the second knock, because, the rule said 2 was fine, she obviously expected to see the outside world. A dirt road, dim streetlights, a starry night sky. But instead, she saw a void. Total, absolute darkness. And lurking inside that dark was a shape. The text gives us this incredibly creepy, unnatural description. It was a shape that hadn't finished arriving yet, like it was some kind of entity still being unpacked from somewhere else entirely. And right here is where we uncover the ultimate, terrifying truth of the story. Meher tells him it was the shape, not the door, that made the third knock from behind her, inside the hallway, right next to her ear. Do you see what happened? Meher miscounted the knocks, because that final, terrifying sound didn't come from the void outside. By the time she opened the front door, she was already trapped with an entity that was inside the house with her.
But listen, the physical monster at the door, that's really only half the terror we're unpacking in this explainer. The true horror of this story lies in the lingering, psychological toll of facing the unknown.
Because the aftermath stretches long into the future. 8 months later, the siblings finally move out. Their parents actually sell the house to a new family with 2 young kids. And in a moment of incredibly bleak moral ambiguity, the narrator chooses never to warn them. He rationalizes it, assuming the curse is just tied to the land, and that the rule will simply find its way to this new family, just like it found him. It cements how completely inescapable this inherited superstition really is. And even now, living far away from that house, the narrator admits that late at night, when it's quiet, he still catches himself listening to the door, just counting. Which brings us to the absolute core concept of the source material, anticipatory dread. It's the psychological terror caused not by an active present threat, but by the agonizing, inevitable wait for the unknown to arrive. In horror, waiting for the scare is almost always so much worse than the scare itself. That grandfather's rule didn't protect them. It actually weaponized their own anticipation against them. It forced them to constantly measure the silence, to live every day in that terrifying little gap between the first knock and whatever comes next. Because, as Meher figured out while sitting completely frozen on that hallway floor, the danger was never actually the third knock itself. The physical entity, as terrifying as it was really just the conclusion of the trap. The real danger is that once you've heard that second knock and started counting, you literally cannot stop yourself from listening for the third. You become a prisoner to your own inevitable anticipation. And the most horrifying part of the whole thing, it always comes. So just think about that the next time you hear a random bump in the quiet of your own home and you find yourself holding your breath, waiting for the next one. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next one.